New York State Governor Kathy Hochul has just done a wonderful thing. She has enacted legislation to restrict smartphones in schools throughout the school day. Governor Hochul did this, as she said, to ensure that children are learning and growing, not clicking and scrolling. I applaud Governor Hochul's efforts for another extremely important reason: preventing repetitive strain injury by keeping children away from mobile phones. Hello, I'm Deborah Quilter, and I've written 2 books about repetitive strain injury. If you've never heard of it, repetitive strain injury is an umbrella term for a number of syndromes affecting the soft tissue, tendons, and nerves of the neck, shoulder, upper arm, elbow, forearm, wrist, fingers, and thumb. It's an overuse injury. Many people, including children, are injured from smartphones because of the inherently dangerous shape of the phone and how people hold and use them. But people also get RSI from computer and laptop use or any repetitive use of the hand. And since it's a cumulative trauma disorder, all of these uses matter because they add up. Common forms of repetitive strain injury include carpal tunnel syndrome, tennis elbow, and many other ailments. The rate of RSI has increased with the rate of personal computing, cell phones, and other technology that places stress on the hands. According to the Occupational Health and Safety Administration, 1.8 million adult workers are estimated to be affected by RSI every year. RSI can lead to chronic, crippling disability. Prevention is the only cure for repetitive strain injury. There are not a lot of comprehensive studies about children becoming injured from using technological devices such as computer keyboards, mice, and game controllers. But there are studies about children becoming injured from gaming. I'm going to talk about what's not in those studies, the way RSI happens to children and continues into adulthood after the initial injury. What I'm going to tell you is based on over 3 decades of experience helping hundreds of people with repetitive strain injury. Let's start with a real-life example, a boy I will call Adam. Here's what he wrote to me a couple of months ago. I am 14 years old and I got RSI. I have important exams in 3 months. I will have to write a lot and quickly. I have not told my parents because they will worry a lot, so I cannot visit a doctor. Can you please share some advice? I want to get healed completely before my exams. I also want to ask if I can play mobile games, as I cannot live without it. Please help me out. I recommended that Adam tell his parents and go to the doctor. Here's what I imagine happened after that, based on hundreds of experience people have told me about. His parents took him to the doctor, but like most doctors, he had very little training on the upper extremity, even though it's one of the most commonly injured body parts in the industrialized world, especially due to technology use. So the doctor looked up online what the treatments were, and he decided to give Adam a prescription for nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory medicine. These are very strong painkillers, which can also have harmful effects on the gastrointestinal tract. Because they don't address the root cause of the injury, but rather mask the symptoms, the injury can get worse because the child is continuing the offending activity that caused the RSI in the first place, playing video games or texting or scrolling on his phone. When the doctor looked up treatments for RSI, he also saw that splints were often used, so he prescribed those. But splinting for RSI can lead to more problems, muscle atrophy, and even more weakness and secondary injuries. Splinting must be done judiciously, only in certain circumstances, such as preventing patients from bending their wrists while they're sleeping at night. Because he couldn't bend his wrist, he was now injuring adjacent areas of his arm, and he kept getting weaker and weaker. The doctor gave Adam a prescription for physical therapy. When the therapist found out that Adam's hands were weak, she started having him do wrist curls with weights and squeezing rubber balls. The therapist didn't realize that he was weak because of overuse, and her exercises were only making his RSI worse by further straining damaged tissue. Like most people, Adam's parents thought the doctor would cure Adam's RSI. But treatments are not cures for RSI, and Adam wasn't getting better. It eventually became too painful for him to game on his phone. And worse, even things like opening doors or lifting and carrying his laptop would cause pain. While certain treatments can help patients regain some hand function and maintain that recovery if they avoid the offending activity, such as using their computer or phone or doing repetitive things with their hands, the tissue remains fragile and easily re-injured, so people with RSI flare up regularly. After going to several other doctors and trying treatment after treatment, only to find Adam getting a little bit better and then relapsing and getting even worse, what slowly begins to sink in to Adam's parents is that they will be supporting him for life and/or he will be on disability. How will Adam find a job if he can't even lift a coffee mug? I have met many 26-year-olds who are still living with their parents because they can't work. Those 26-year-olds have spontaneously done the same thing to illustrate the extent of their injury. They lift a coffee mug and tell me they can hold it for a second, but then they have to put it right down. The most common question I get after "what doctor should I see" is "what job can I do now that I can't use my hands anymore?" People want to work, but RSI renders them virtually unemployable unless they can figure out their own career with a lot of accommodation. Here's what most people don't know about RSI if they have heard of it at all. RSI is episodic. When people are in the early stages and could turn things around, the symptoms are so subtle they don't know they are injured. Maybe their hands just feel tired, or they're having unfamiliar tingling sensations, or they've become extremely clumsy and drop things all the time, or it's painful to reach for things or carry things because they are so weak. Maybe their elbow hurts, or their forearms feel like they're on fire. Maybe they have shooting pains that come and go. Every time the symptoms go away, they think they're fine. But then the episodes happen more frequently and closer together and now have become chronic. But by the time people are having chronic pain, they are already in stage 3 of the injury, and at that point it's too late to turn things around. And sometimes their doctor doesn't know these subtle warning signs of RSI, so they are dismissed without a thorough examination or any guidance about how to prevent further injury. So how did Adam get into trouble? Common risk factors include many things that can happen during gaming or browsing social media. Speed, repetition, overuse, poor posture, especially forward head posture, as in looking down at your phone, keeping your elbows bent while you're holding your phone, using your thumbs to text or play games on your phone, using too much force or press keys, over gripping your phone or mouse, and bending or twisting the wrist, sitting for prolonged periods, over 2 hours of computer use a day, keeping your elbows bent and your palms down at the computer for prolonged periods, and that's the very position of typing, lack of regular breaks, poor physical conditioning, sedentary behavior, gaming or internet addiction, and poor body awareness. This can happen because you're distracted by games, texting or scrolling, so you ignore the body's warning signs. And here are a few of the warning signs for repetitive strain injury. A feeling of weakness in the hands or forearms, fatigue or lack of endurance, a feeling of heaviness, tingling, numbness or loss of sensation, difficulty opening and closing the hands, difficulty turning pages, buttoning buttons, twisting doorknobs and faucets, holding a coffee mug, feeling like the hands fell asleep, waking up with wrist pain or numb hands, lack of coordination, tremors or involuntary movements, soreness or mild to excruciating pain, which can be dull, achy, electrical, shooting, or stabbing. Sitting also leads to repetitive strain injury in many ways. It basically deforms the body the way shoes deform the feet. Chairs encourage people to sit with a forward head posture because people lean against their backrest and they're trying to view the screen. Poor posture is one of the leading causes of repetitive strain injury, especially forward head posture. This is because the nerves that emanate from the neck lead all the way down to the fingertips. Those nerves can become compressed at the neck, leading to numbness and tingling in the hands. This can be mistaken for carpal tunnel syndrome, and many people have unnecessary surgeries because the doctor doesn't know how to properly diagnose RSI. Most children slouch when they're using their phones with a curved spine, which puts them at risk not only for repetitive strain injury, but many other health problems we don't have time to get into. Instead of holding the phone up and sitting up in proper position, they sit with their spines curved. And then they use their thumbs to press the keys rather than their index finger. This puts enormous strain on the thumb joint, which is very easily injured. The natural movement of the thumb is making a power movement, a power grip. This downward action of the thumb using a space bar or texting can lead to serious and extremely painful thumb injuries. Because of the critical nature of the thumb, when it's injured, it can make it impossible for people to open jars, twist doorknobs, or drive. Here is how you can reduce the risk of using a cell phone. Sit tall, bring the phone a few inches away from your face so that you don't have to look down at it at all. And if you must text, use the index finger of your opposite hand, or better yet, dictate. If you're using the phone extensively, put it on a holder, because just holding the phone strains the thumb and keeps the elbow bent, which is a risk factor for cubital tunnel syndrome, a nerve injury. Here are some common examples of how children sit using their phones. Most people have no idea how injurious these postures can be over time. These children are looking down with a forward head, and their spines are in a C shape, and they're using their thumbs to scroll or text. This child is using a backrest and her head is forward. This toddler is massaging the back of his neck, possibly because his head is looking forward and down. That phone is way too big for his hands, and he's straining his thumb just to hold it. Here we have another example of forward head posture and a too large phone. This child and her mother are both leaning on their elbows with a forward head posture. This posture of leaning on the elbow both stretches and compresses the ulnar nerve and can lead to cubital tunnel syndrome. Here are more examples of forward head posture. You can see how intent these children are on their game. Sometimes it's very difficult to get their attention because they're so engrossed in playing. This means they're not likely to be listening to their body's warning signals or getting up to take a break. Standard phones are way too big for a child's hands, and this is another way they can get injured, just holding their phone. Many people think ergonomics will prevent RSI, and while yes, it can be somewhat helpful, it can't overcome faulty design and the sheer amount of time people spend overusing their hands. Nor can it make children take breaks, sit up straight, or use good technique. Furthermore, the advice that you find from OSHA about sitting in the 90-90-90 position with your elbows bent at 90 degrees and your knees and hips at 90 degrees will actually lead to injury because of the strong elbow flexion and advice to use a backrest, which leads to the forward head posture we talked about earlier, while people are trying to view their screens. It also weakens the spinal muscles. Once people are injured, they can have trouble with common daily activities such as squeezing toothpaste tubes, dressing, cooking, driving, opening doors, myriad other tasks. But not only that, there's a risk of deep depression and even suicide. Many people have confessed to thinking about suicide because their life is so hard without normal hand use. There are studies about suicide among young people. But here's what I see in real life. Last week, I got this comment on my YouTube channel. I can't do this anymore. I'm 24 years old, 14 months into having RSI. Every night before I sleep, I wish I won't wake up. I asked this what I assume to be a young man, not to give up, call a suicide hotline, see a psychotherapist, and keep looking for things that would help him. He replied, "Thanks, but I will give this 12 to 14 months from now on. After this time, I will be in a very dark place in my life if I can't do some of my old hobbies plus 6 to 8 hours of PC work. I can't deny that I'm better than a year ago, but I simply see no point in life where I have to manage a condition in my private time so I can barely do a job and have no hobbies besides non-hand related activities." This is a common response to repetitive strain injury. People tell me they feel hopeless and suicidal a lot, and there have been cases of suicide. So what's the answer? It's complicated. I've written a blueprint about what needs to happen, beginning with a massive public education campaign to alert people to children's risk for repetitive strain injury. We also need legislation to change the tools that we use on a daily basis because they are inherently dangerous by putting us in awkward positions for prolonged periods of time. The body can tolerate these things for so long, but then the damage is done. People try to keep working, but it just makes everything worse because they're continuing the offending activity. I hope that Governor Hochul will enact legislative action to end RSI and include the physical risk of cell phones to children because it strongly bolsters and dovetails with her plan to keep cell phones out of schools. Please show this video to your child's teachers, school boards, parent-teachers associations, doctors, and any other group who needs this information. Please sign my petition. I've left a link in the details below. And be sure to watch the video that's coming up next or linked in the details below for more great information about repetitive strain injury.